It seems like the federal agencies have had enough of keeping quiet about the notorious Brooklyn Detention Center, and this time they decided to shake things up. The target this time is MDC Brooklyn, the very place where Sean Diddy Combs is enjoying his time, thanks to those frightening allegations. As if the scandal wasn't enough, on Monday, a multi-agency operation turned this federal jail into the backdrop of a crime drama, with even a K-9 unit on hand to make sure nothing suspicious slipped through. Don't miss these revelations. Leave a comment with the number 1 and join us now to uncover some exciting and surprising details. Sean Combs and cryptocurrency billionaire Sam Bankman-Fried are currently being held at MDC in Sunset Park, but this is also the facility that has housed other high-profile inmates like R. Kelly, Fetty Wap, and Martin Shkreli, aka Farmer Bro. The place is notorious for frequent violence. I've got all kinds of memos about lockdowns, and I've lost count of how many times I've visited a client only to be turned away due to an emergency search or a sudden lockdown. Let's be real here. This isn't your typical routine check on inmates. The FBI, DEA, NYPD, and nearly every other agency showed up with a clear purpose. The official line is that there's no active threat, but honestly, would you deploy a full-scale federal task force complete with drug-sniffing dogs if everything was truly fine? The prosecutors revealed that during a raid on a suspect's house in Miami, they discovered 1,000 bottles of liquid, allegedly linked to freak-offs, the sex shows that Combs was said to be controlling. In addition, there was a significant stash of drugs like cocaine, ketamine, MDMA, Molly, and GHB, all purportedly distributed to ensure the victims complied with his demands. The Bureau of Prisons tried to remain calm, stating that the entire search had been planned in advance. But honestly, there's nothing like a large-scale surprise raid to remind everyone who's really in charge. If you're wondering whether Diddy has anything to do with the sudden, aggressive action by law enforcement, the official story says not exactly. But hey, this isn't exactly a coincidence. Combs is the latest high-profile name to join the ranks of infamous inmates at MDC Brooklyn. It seems like this federal lockup has become a gathering spot for fallen A-list stars. Forget the red carpet. Now it's all about steel bars and concrete walls. With rising attention, it's worth noting that the criticism surrounding this detention facility has not just been about housing high-profile stars, but about how it treats everyone as if they are worthless. The living conditions here have been described as so horrific that some judges have refused to send detainees to this facility. We're talking about overcrowded cells, severe staff shortages, and living conditions that resemble a medieval dungeon. So it's quite interesting to see the Bureau of Prisons suddenly worrying about maintaining a safe environment. Combs' legal team, with big names like Mark Agnifilo and Tenny Giragos, have been busy trying to get him transferred out of Brooklyn, apparently thinking that a New Jersey facility would offer better conditions. But for now, Diddy remains at MDC Brooklyn, under regular suicide watch. Whether that's truly for his safety or just a precaution, it's hard not to think of Jeffrey Epstein, whose time in federal custody did not end well. No need to rehash that scandal, as everyone here remembers it all too well. Speaking of Epstein, the federal jail in Manhattan where he was held, where the cameras mysteriously malfunctioned, and the guards conveniently fell asleep the night he died, has since been temporarily shut down. Perhaps they figured one bad headline was enough, and now it's MDC Brooklyn's turn to be in the spotlight. And with Diddy there, the story almost writes itself. But back to the raid, or more accurately, the interagency operation, Sources from the defense team suggest this was more of a sweep, with agents moving from cell to cell as if they were searching for a hidden treasure. The official explanation still maintains that it was just a routine check. But honestly, this was more of a display of power. They might have been looking for drugs, weapons, or simply wanting to remind Diddy and everyone else that no matter how famous you are, you're still just an inmate in their eyes. Meanwhile, Diddy continues to maintain his innocence while the accusers keep filing civil lawsuits. It's like a never-ending spiral, with headlines constantly popping up and the storyline growing more and more complicated. Diddy was scheduled for a trial in May next year, but until then, he'll have to share his cell with the ghosts of fallen stars. The difference this time is that the spotlight isn't shining on a red carpet, but rather on the grim corridors of MDC Brooklyn. The whole situation with MDC Brooklyn feels like a tragic reality show, except no one's actually winning anything. Between overcrowding, poor conditions, and now these interagency raids, it truly feels like a house of madness. It's no secret that the Bureau of Prisons has had its fair share of scandals, but this latest chapter just adds more fuel to the fire. Just last month, reports surfaced about inmates facing lockdowns, power outages, and food conditions that could only be described as inhumane. That raises a real question. How is it possible for anyone, celebrity or not, to walk out of this place with even a shred of their sanity intact? Of course, all of this is happening while Combs' legal team is working overtime to keep him away from the chaos. They've thrown every argument and measure they can think of to request his transfer. Their main point, MDC Brooklyn is too dangerous, too chaotic, and far too infamous for its scandals. But the prosecutors don't seem to be swayed. In their eyes, if it's good enough for other inmates, it should be good enough for Combs. There's a clear element of, let him suffer like everyone else. And it's not exactly subtle. The message seems to be, no special treatment no matter who you are. It's truly ironic to see Diddy, once the king of New York, living in luxurious mansions and flying on private jets, now facing the harsh reality of a federal prison cell. The lavish lifestyle, the team of assistants, the wealth, none of that matters behind those bars. And perhaps this is the message that law enforcement wants the public to see: a fall from grace, a reminder that no one is above the law. But let's be honest, it's this very system, the one that's now using Diddy as a cautionary tale, that turned a blind eye to his wrongdoings in the past when it suited their interests. The Suicide Watch label attached to Combs' situation is another layer in this already complicated story. The Bureau of Prisons claims that it's standard procedure for high-profile inmates, but it feels more like a PR move in the wake of the Epstein incident. No one wants to be the guard responsible for another celebrity dying under their watch, so now Combs is under 24/7 surveillance, with more eyes on him than ever, supposedly for his own safety. It's hard not to think that this is as much about protecting the Bureau's reputation as it is about truly caring for the well-being of the inmate. And then there are the figures who walked the halls of MDC Brooklyn before Combs. R. Kelly, who spent time there while facing his own heinous criminal charges, is said to have found the conditions nearly unbearable. Then there's Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's infamous associate, who was held there after being convicted for her role in one of the most horrific sex trafficking rings in modern history. MDC Brooklyn seems to have become the default detention center for those famous enough to make headlines but dangerous enough to warrant tight surveillance. It's as if the facility has carved out an eerie, dark reputation for housing those with the most notorious high-profile cases. Imagine a jail cell that's not a place of rehabilitation, but rather a real-life horror show. And under the spotlight is none other than Sean Diddy Combs, alongside a roster of other high-profile inmates, turning this grim facility into its own twisted neon sign of notoriety. While MDC Brooklyn has certainly housed its fair share of famous names, it's actually more infamous for the abysmal conditions the prisoners endure than for the celebrities it holds. With Diddy's current situation, the spotlight continues to shine on him. Let's take a look at what's been exposed, from nightmare scenarios filled with rats to his legal team describing their client as vulnerable, a gentle way of putting it considering the harsh realities of his circumstances. Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's right hand in his vile operations, gave the public a first-hand look at some of the worst conditions of MDC during her time there. Her legal team even called MDC inhumane, and let's be honest, if the conditions are bad enough for Maxwell to complain, that's a serious red flag. Her complaints included poor lighting, near-zero opportunities for exercise, and a lack of basic human rights. Meanwhile, thousands of other inmates are facing similar hellish conditions, except they don't have the whole world watching. MDC claims that Joe Exotic was the one who threw the first punch and tried to grab a police radio to prevent them from calling for help. After Sam Bankman-Fried, the golden boy of crypto, was locked up here following the collapse of his cryptocurrency empire in 2023, he got a front-row seat to witness the squalor, lack of medical care, and of course the total lack of privacy. While his lawyers constantly raised concerns about the terrible conditions, it was almost as if no one was listening, like trying to shout into a storm. MDC is not just a detention center, it's a place that brings everyone down to the same level of misery. R&B superstar R. Kelly, who was convicted and turned into a criminal, also spent time at MDC, and his lawyers didn't waste any time criticizing the facility for its lack of medical care and utter disregard for mental health. While Kelly's story made front-page news everywhere, the truth is, the complaints about inadequate health care are something countless other inmates at MDC are enduring. They just don't have the fame or media attention to make their voices heard. Michael Cohen, former advisor to Donald Trump, also spent some time at MDC, mostly trying to avoid the squalor and hoping that the lack of hygiene wouldn't kill him before the other dreadful conditions could. Cohen's testimony may have shocked the public, but the nightmares at MDC aren't new to those who have had to endure them longer. His inside stories confirmed what many already knew. MDC is like an illegal version of a dystopian world. Allison Mack, the actress best known for her role in Smallville and one of the leaders of the NXIVM cult, described her time at MDC as a period where isolation and lack of nutrition nearly killed her. Her story, from TV star to prisoner, was a rich source for the media, but her suffering mirrors the cycle that plays out daily at MDC, a slow, quiet mental breakdown with no one really paying attention. Martin Shkreli, the infamous figure who was notorious for jacking up drug prices, thought his wealth and fame would make things easier for him in prison. But here's the reality check. He was wrong. People like Shkreli, along with countless other inmates, are forced to endure terrible living conditions, near non-existent health care, and far more suffering than they ever imagined. Let's face the truth. Every time a celebrity enters MDC, the public and media attention floods in. But behind those flashing lights lies a grim picture of cold neglect. MDC isn't designed to rehabilitate people, it's designed to break them. Violence is inevitable, healthcare is virtually non-existent, and the staff is always understaffed, underpaid, and unmotivated to help anyone. The infamous power outage in the winter of 2019, where prisoners endured freezing cold and darkness for days, is just one example of the institution's failures. High-profile cases may bring temporary attention, but in the end, it's all met with indifference and apathy. Life at MDC is not just about celebrities in prison. It's a mirror reflecting the systemic failures we face in federal correctional facilities. Federal judges have described it as barbaric, and they're absolutely right. For the average inmate, life at MDC is about navigating violence, trying to survive with health care that's nearly non-existent, and holding on to hope when every system you trust seems designed to break you. It's a daily struggle of despair. Indeed, when someone like Ghislaine Maxwell or Diddy enters, the media might capture a few moments of the harrowing conditions. But once the cameras are gone, the story slips back into routine. And that routine is nothing short of grinding down the human spirit, day after day. This is the infamous SHU, Special Housing Unit, where prisoners are held in administrative segregation at the highest security levels. It's the maximum security wing of the Metropolitan Detention Center, housing those deemed the most dangerous or high risk. Here, isolation isn't just physical, it's a constant psychological assault, designed to strip away any semblance of normalcy. High-profile stories may grab attention, but the truth remains undeniable. MDC Brooklyn is a broken cog in an even more broken system. This is not just bad luck for those incarcerated, but a sign of systemic decay. If change ever comes, it's unlikely to be driven by headlines about celebrities, but by the moment when people stop settling for another scandal and start truly addressing the root issues. An entire system that is built not to rehabilitate, but to break down those who pass through it. It's also undeniable how the Bureau of Prisons tends to tighten its operations when the media spotlight turns on them, almost as if they care more about appearing to take action than actually fixing the underlying problems. Bringing in the FBI, DEA, and NYPD might make for a great headline, but it doesn't change the fact that MDC Brooklyn has been broken for a long time. For the inmates, an investigation like this isn't just an inconvenience. Imagine being woken up at the crack of dawn by a team of federal agents, your cell being ransacked, your belongings being searched, all while knowing that what they're looking for probably won't even be there. It's a power play, a reminder that they're the ones in charge, and the prisoners are nothing more than pawns in a much larger game. The story isn't over yet. With a trial date set for next year and more accusers coming forward, the spotlight on Combs and MDC Brooklyn will only grow brighter. The Bureau of Prisons will continue to try and put out the fires. The legal team will stick to their strategy, and the media will keep on watching. Meanwhile, the inmates, both famous and not, will continue to endure the daily reality of a place seemingly designed to break them. This is a story of power, corruption, fallen stars, and a system that seems to thrive on chaos. Diddy's legal team, perhaps outfitted in suits more expensive than your car, continues to work tirelessly to get him out of jail. How, you ask? With a $50 million bail, they're ready to slap a shiny gold GPS tracker on him and keep him holed up in a luxury Miami mansion. They've even promised to keep him away from the internet, cell phones, and anyone outside of close family or essential legal contacts. They're even suggesting weekly drug tests and a daily log of people he meets. A real-life Truman Show, but all for the court's peace of mind. However, Judge Andrew L. Carter Jr. wasn't convinced by those promises. He cited Diddy's temper and history of excessive partying as reasons why he might not be the ideal neighbor at this time. Despite having top-tier attorneys and clear family support, the judge ultimately denied bail, keeping Diddy behind bars. Judge Carter's decision sends a clear message. No matter how much money you throw on the table, you can't bypass serious concerns about the defendant. The defense team's strategy, as it seems, is to play the family man card as much as possible, the devoted father who poses no threat to anyone. They hope that this family-oriented angle will soften the image prosecutors are painting of him, making Diddy appear more like a loving father than a dangerous figure. Even after another bail denial, his lawyers refuse to back down. Mark Agnifilo, who leads the team, remains firm in his stance. He claims that the case is built on weak allegations, with too much exaggeration and not enough solid evidence. His argument is that Diddy voluntarily surrendered, which, according to him, shows that he was not trying to evade the law. But the judge wasn't swayed. Despite all the commitments for house arrest, GPS monitoring, daily journals, she still said, "No thank you, we're fine." The prosecutors seem to have done an effective job convincing the court that allowing Diddy to remain free could pose more harm than good. This isn't just about Diddy's personal freedom, but about his image, his empire, and his legacy. He has been a major figure in music and entertainment for decades, but now everything is hanging in the balance. The glow of his brand, his success, and his influence is starting to fade. Not to mention those who once stood behind him are beginning to distance themselves. The allegations against him are sparking broader conversations within the entertainment industry. People are reassessing how they view these powerful figures and questioning whether they are truly held accountable when such accusations arise. The current discourse isn't exactly favorable for Diddy. The coming months will be crucial. His legal team is gearing up for a long battle, but for now, with no bail granted, Diddy must face the cold reality of life behind bars. He will have to rely on his family and legal team while navigating a media frenzy that seems to feed off every twist and turn of his case. Whether he eventually walks free or faces more severe consequences, this trial is bound to unfold into a long and unpredictable journey. As he faces legal challenges, Diddy cannot overlook the significant achievements he's built throughout his career. As one of the most powerful figures in the music and entertainment industry, he has established an immense financial empire. To date, Diddy's net worth is estimated to be in the billions, thanks to a blend of creative business acumen and strategic investments in music, spirits, fashion, and other entertainment products. However, Diddy's life and career now stand at a major crossroads, and no matter what happens next, this journey will be full of uncertainties. Thank you for watching today's video. The shocking discoveries recently revealed by the FBI in Diddy's cell not only rocked the entertainment industry, but also make us reflect on deeper issues of power and justice. If you found this content interesting and insightful, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss out on important and exciting updates in the future. See you next time in our next video.